let's jump into the what if scenario on this. Let's say they stay together. Where is the landscape if they stayed together?
Okay, so I got to ask you a question first before I answer that question. So, which breakup are we talking about? Because Little Brother,
they had 3 iterations.
Yeah, they've had a couple of iterations of breakups. They started out as a trio with Ninth Wonder, rapper Big Pooh, and Fonte, and then they broke up unceremoniously on Twitter. Do you remember them breaking up on Twitter?
Yep.
I watched that live.
That was in 08, 09.
In fact, if you got a second, I could read it to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I pulled up the tweets because what happened was there was an issue as far as there was a song called Star that Little Brother had done that Ninth Wonder produced. And the backstory was this song was recorded in like 05, 06 at Young Guru's crib sometime after the release of the Minstrel Show, their second studio album. The song was intended for Left Back, which would have been Little Brother's third album that Ninth Wonder wasn't on.
Get Back. It ended up being called Get Back.
Yeah. So as a bonus track, and Ninth Wonder didn't want to use it. So Fonte goes on Twitter and says, hey, Ninth Wonder didn't want to use it. He tagged Ninth Wonder on it. He said that's fine. He's like, in any event, I'm not going to let anybody stop me from getting music to my fans. Fuck that. Enjoy and always thank you for listening. So after he left that message, Ninth responded. He said, let people talk, bro. Only if they knew the real story. He said, responding to Fonte. And then Fonte said, well, tell your side or shut the fuck up. And then Ninth said, Fonte, you're not a tough guy. None of us is. So kill all that noise and niggas ain't shutting up. And after that, they stopped going back and forth. And then that was it. They literally broke up on Twitter. And like, as somebody who followed them, seeing that, and this exchange went back and forth maybe for about 20 or 30 minutes. This was like before the era of going quote unquote viral. I gotta tell you, D, it was mind-boggling because again, at this point in time, they are my favorite rap group.
Me too.
And I'm literally watching them break up over Twitter. And it wasn't so it was about the song, but it was also big. There were bigger issues with the group. Because at the time, Ninth was doing other things and they didn't have a problem with Ninth doing other things. But the thing was that he wasn't like, they needed him. They basically said, look, you either in the group or you're not in the group. Mm-hmm. If you're not in the group, that's cool, but you can't do it. We can't have a halfway producer. And so they ended up going their separate ways. So that was the first iteration of their breakup. And then subsequently, a couple of years later, because of, if you watch their documentary, which is a great documentary, when you finish watching this podcast episode, go watch May the Lord Watch. It's on YouTube. You can watch it for free. They detail as to how now they become a duo, and Fonte and then Big Pooh, they go their separate ways because Big Pooh wants to stay on a record label. And Fonte's looking at the numbers is like, nah, man. I mean, what does it benefit us? We're not
but also, I think that in that situation, I think Fonte had the benefit of doing foreign exchange and knowing like, yo, like I'm getting to see these other different numbers for doing independent stuff.
Exactly. He at that point in time, he realized that going independent was better for them, and Pooh still wanted the security of a major label. And I get it. I actually get both sides of it.
Yeah.
And so they broke up as Little Brother. And then they got back together. They were doing a show called The Art of Cool. I think this was 2018, I think.
When all three of them got back together.
Yeah, all three of them got back together for this show. Because what happened was after Fonte and Pooh fell out, Ninth and Fonte became cool again, and they squashed whatever beef they had, but they still had beef with Pooh. Unbeknownst to us, Pooh gets sick, and Fonte reaches out to Pooh. They mend their friendship or what have you, and so they back cool again. And the three of them, but now they're not talking about doing anything. So anyway, they have this concert. Royce the 5'9" was supposed to come. It was a concert in Raleigh, I think, and Royce couldn't make it. The people reached out to Fonte and said, hey, can you come down and do fill in for Royce. And he was like, well, what if I can get Ninth and Pooh? And it was like, word, for real? Like, so now
you really do that?
Yeah, can you really do that? And so it was like little brother again. So long story short, Pooh reaches out to Ninth. Ninth said, okay, I can show up. Pooh is coming from Charlotte, which is 2 or 3 hours away. And they do the show, and nobody knows about this until they actually hit the stage. And I just remember that night, man, the Twitter was blowing up like little brothers back together again. And so we were so amped up. And then, they were talking about, I guess the next day they got together and they was like, hey, we can do this again. We can make this a thing. And so they started, working together again, getting ready to make this album. And then it kind of fell apart again. Now it gets kind of tricky as to who you believe, but Pooh and Fonte have maintained that at this point, they still don't feel like Ninth is all the way in.
Mm-hmm. And they were like, wasn't he like not trying to show up for shows?
Yeah, he was like, well, I could do these shows sometimes. I could be here, I could be there, and it was kind of like the same thing. It was like, look, bro, if we're gonna be little brother, the three of us again, we need you you either all the way in or all the way out. And so he was like, I can't be at this date out, or maybe you can get DJ Flash to fill in here like that. And so, and then they didn't particularly care for some of the beats that Ninth had submitted to them for this upcoming album. And Fonte was, I remember Fonte saying this in an interview. He's like, man, give us the hot shit. Give us the same shit you give Jay-Z. Don't be giving us no throwaway beats.
Don't be giving us don't give us the Roy Lees. Remember
yeah, exactly. So long story short, at that point, Pooh, Ninth, and Fonte, and Pooh say, look, here's your beats back. We're cool. We gonna keep it as a duo. And at that point, they have not, to my knowledge, that was the last time they spoke, and that was 2018. And so they've had 3 breakups. So saying all of that, going back to your question,
way to set the table for everybody, because it's been multiple breakups.
Yeah, it's been multiple breakups. If they had stayed together, I think they still would have had the same amount of success, maybe a little bit more. I think the thing that I love about how they've been able to move and maneuver is that even though Ninth became a bigger name than them with his work with Jay-Z and Destiny's Child and working with Erykah Badu and all these people, it didn't hamper the shine that Fonte and Big Pooh had. So I
actually disagree with you a little bit.
Really?
I think the group staying together benefited rapper Pooh more than everybody.
You think so?
Yeah, you got to think Fonte had foreign exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole that they were getting Grammy nominations and stuff like. You got to think like that's a whole nother. Then he's working with Questlove and doing stuff with him. Like there was a whole nother path of life that Fonte had. And I'm not sure what everything Big Pooh has going on, but I'm just saying.
Well, here's the thing, and this is where I think I disagree, because I think Pooh was able to venture off and do a couple of solo things himself. Yeah. He eventually became he was managing JID. And so he had a couple of different irons in the fire. So I think his name and his reputation as such a hard worker and also an incredible MC, I think he would have been fine either way. I think it would have been, for us, because we initially saw them as a trio, I think it would have been great if they would have been able to stay together. But I don't necessarily know that their paths would have been that much more different. Maybe they become a little bit bigger, a little bit more well-known, because Ninth was basically more well-known than they were. But ultimately, I mean, those brothers are, all 3 of them are talented within their own right. So I think they would have been fine.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that Ninth had to make do you think that if Ninth did not get on that Jay-Z track, do you think that is that the thing that kicks him off to get and be able to do this trajectory work? The song Threats, for everybody doesn't know, on the Black album.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that definitely put Ninth in another stratosphere. To be on Threats on the Jay-Z album and because keep in mind, folks, at this particular time that Jay-Z gets on this album, Jay-Z doesn't know who Ninth Wonder is. He literally was discovered or brought to him by a young guru who was Jay-Z's engineer. Mm-hmm. And so if Guru doesn't hear Ninth Wonder's beats, and bring him on, maybe he doesn't ever meet Jay-Z. And if he doesn't meet Jay-Z, maybe he doesn't work with Destiny's Child. Maybe he doesn't eventually work with Erykah Badu. But I think Ninth Wonder his talent would have still gotten him in different circles. Now, would he have been on the same level as some of the people like you mentioned, as far as producing like Kanye or Just Blaze or somebody like or that nature? Who knows? But I think his talent would have still gotten him in those rooms. I think it probably would have taken him a little bit longer to get there though.
Yeah, and do you think that they would be, if they stayed together, do you think that they would have gotten that love as like a De La would have, or they would have been able to get pushed through? Because that was if people don't remember, that was the big issue with the listening, that they put so much money into this album because they thought it was going to be able to push them a little bit more into the mainstream light. But then you have the controversy with BET saying they didn't want to play Loving It because it wasn't. Well, I forgot what that.
It was too black. It was too
like
smart.
Too education or something.
Too educated. Yeah, BET was
like too educated.
At that time BET was about playing, tip drill on BET Uncut. Like they didn't want to have something that was positive or something that you could get something from. BET was on straight the ignorant shit. So, that's a good question. I think because, and I know I'm biased, right? I think because of their talent, I think Little Brother still would have ascended probably to the same heights that they did.
Oh, too intelligent for a BT audience is the direct quote.
Yeah, just imagine that, being too intelligent for your little music channel.
Yeah.
But I think had they stayed together, I think their talents would have propelled them, to similar heights. They probably could have gone a little bit further, but you don't know if, ultimately if Ninth's side work would have gotten in the way of the group. I think ultimately, they could have maintained it, but I think one of the big things that we lose sight of is that they're young. They're really young. So like they literally and I heard Fonte mention this on a podcast once. He said like we literally went from college to having a record deal. And so like we knew each other.
Yeah, they're only like a year or two older than me.
Yeah, they knew each other for like maybe 2 or 3 years in college. So you think about some of the homies and people you ran with at Iowa State, or I think about some of the people I ran with at South.
What if DOC never got into that car accident? What if Ice Cube didn't leave NWA? What if the Game never leaves G Unit? What if Teddy Riley never moves to Virginia? What if we got that J. Cole and Kendrick album? What if the RZA would have never had that flood? How would the hip-hop world sound today? Welcome to Hip Hop What Ifs, the podcast where we dive into the biggest what could have beens in hip-hop history. From iconic album delays to game-changing partnerships that never happened, we reimagine the culture we love and explore its alternative paths. And you are now at Hip Hop What Ifs.